bring on Ali Parsa. He is the CEO of Babylon Holdings. Get started with our last interview. Let's bring him on. Ali, how are you?
Yeah, so good to see you. Thank you for having me.
Great to see you as well, Ali. Thank you for being here. A lot of exciting stuff to dive into. Before we get to all that, we did a quick intro to Babylon Holdings. Tell us a little bit about the company and what you guys do.
We are a company that was born in the UK where the healthcare system is a lot more frugal and it's a lot more comprehensive. We learned how to look after somebody digitally end to end from cradle to grave. And then we had a lot of insurance companies in the United States telling us, why don't you come to the US? So we did. And in a very short period of time, we built a business in US that is almost $1 billion in revenue, growing super fast. We grew four-fold a year every year in the last few years. And we are continuing to see great market product fit in the United States.
Outstanding. Okay, knowing that, let's talk about artificial intelligence, right? It's a very complex product, not always easy to understand, but you guys do a great job of presenting this to your consumers and investors as a whole so they can understand what you guys do. How do you plan to pitch artificial intelligence to potential customers in ways that they can understand it, right? People that don't know of Babylon yet, don't know what you do. How do you guys present your product and what you do to new customers?
You know, as you quite rightly say, artificial intelligence is a really big word, but you and I use it in everything we do every day. Like every time you use a Google map, every time you use a Google search, you're using artificial intelligence. And so when somebody's ill and they want to know what's wrong with them, they can either Google it or they can expensively talk to a doctor, or our AI will allow them to kind of navigate to see whether they should talk to a doctor or a nurse, or whether they should let it stay for a day or two and it should be okay. In the back end, when our doctors, for instance, write their prescriptions or their notes, the AI is helping them to be faster. When our care assistants are trying to advise you on what to do next, our AI gives them a little bit of help there. So AI is one of those promises that keeps giving, but it just takes time, right? It's your listeners are very familiar with self-driving cars. It's not going to come in one single moment. It comes in a little bit all the time until it learns enough that it clears all the regulatory hurdles. And it's the same going to be about AI in healthcare.
Absolutely. So let's take a broader look at that topic then, right? If you're talking about your plan to scale in relation to the artificial intelligence market and where it's going to grow over the next 10 years, where do you see the role of artificial intelligence being 10 years from now, instead of just where we're at and how you're leveraging it and how you're presenting it to your customers? How are you going to scale along with the AI market as we move ahead into the future?
So where I was born, they would say, if you want God to laugh, you give him your 2-year plan. And I think that trying to predict where AI will be in 10 years' time, it's a dangerous game. But I think when you bring a series of technological developments that are happening together with what is happening in the field of AI, then this could be mind-boggling. Just think about quantum computing, right? Unstable now, the problems are not solved, but let's imagine it did get solved in 5 to 10 years' time. That's a machine that even its today version is 100 million-fold faster than the fastest supercomputers we have. I mean, the ability of running AI on those machines versus the existing machines that we have now is truly exciting. I think that one of these two will come first, either general artificial intelligence or quantum computing or something similar to that. Whichever it does, you kind of get it to solve the problem of the other, to bring that one into life too. I mean, it's a fascinating area, but 10 years is a long way away. I think there is a lot we could do today to make healthcare a lot more efficient, cost-effective, cheaper, more affordable, more accessible for all, with even the tools we have today.
Absolutely. So, and then let's take an expanded look on that too, right? If you look at the future and you're talking about 10 years from now, again, I like your quote about, if you want God to laugh, give me your 2-year plan, because none of us know what's coming next, right? And obviously, just the developments we've had in the last few years, we've grown so much as a nation, as a culture, with our technology and everything else. But your plans to scale outside of just primary care, what else do you plan to use your technology for? Is there any other, channels or ways that you can leverage the technology that you have?
So what we learned is that this thing you and I call healthcare, it really isn't healthcare. It's a sick care industry. It waits until you get sick, then it fixes you. When was the last time you did that with your car? When I was a younger person, we used to drive our cars until it broke down. We took it to a garage, they fixed it, and then we drove it down until it broke down today we've buried so much sensors in our cars that we kind of know when things going wrong ahead of time so that we can intervene early to prevent the crisis and the emergencies. Why don't we do that with our human body? And that's what we're trying to do in Babylon. And because we've been very successful with it, so we published a peer-reviewed paper that showed that in Europe with the National Health Service, which is 3 times more frugal per person per capita on the money it spends on people than we are in the United States, we could save for them up to 35% of all the costs. So in the United States, we go to the insurers and we say, you know what your average medical cost per person is going to be. We take that, but instead of waiting for that person to have crisis, emergencies, and only pay for those disasters, we try to look after them really well, collect their information early, try to avoid those crises and emergencies. I mean, looking at you, I can see you look after yourself really well. If you do that with a lot of people, that would really save time and effort.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the market, right? We've talked about this with several other participants this morning. What you guys are working on and what you're doing, I'm sure it's been affected, by the markets and the times that we're in just as much as anybody else. But how do you guys plan to persevere through everything that's happened so far with the biotech market, with everything dipping and dropping? What are your plans to overcome adversity and keep doing what you're doing?
So we had a horrid time at the market. We unfortunately almost, if you wish, chose to come public as a SPAC because the rate at which we were growing, 400% a year, to using an ordinary IPO, and we had a lot of banks lined up to take us public normally. Well, it didn't make sense because we had to use our backward numbers rather than share our forward. Unfortunately, as you know better than I do, a lot of the SPACs just didn't meet their numbers. We beat our numbers, our projected numbers so far significantly. Like last year, we beat. This year, we were expected to do $750 million of revenue. We're now expected to do more than $1 billion in revenue. But we kind of got caught with that whole thing. So by the time we came to the market and the market had collapsed, we didn't really have as many U.S. institutional buyers on our side. So we're trying to fix that now. So we had a horrible time with the market, but we have enough money for the time being. The revenue is doing really well. The business is growing. Our customers are coming to us. And I think, you quote the good and the great. And Benjamin Graham used to say that the stock markets in the short run are always a voting machine. By the long run, they're a weighing machine. And companies that are just adding up to the weight, they will eventually get rewarded. You remember, I used to be an investment banker with Goldman Sachs in 2001. And at the time, I remember Amazon losing 90% market share. And everybody thought that's the end of the internet, that's the end of the Amazon. And Amazon just kept putting the weight on. And the business just got rewarded really well eventually. Businesses at the end work on fundamentals, not on market sentiments. In the short run, though, you have to be very careful about market. You're absolutely right.
Awesome. Well, let's take a little bit of a deeper dive into that and talk about a development for you guys specifically coming up that's very exciting. You're set to join the Russell 3000 Index on the 27th of this month, as long as that's correct. Why is this so impactful? Why are you guys so excited about it? And what does this mean for the company going forward?
So, we're excited about it just because it'll put us onto a U.S. index, right? We came into the U.S. recently, as I said, the SPAC thing wasn't a great way of getting in at the time because the whole SPAC thing failed. But now it'll start getting institutions to invest in Babylon. And as they do, and the more institutional investors we see, the more excited they are about the story, right? There are not that many people who can deliver an end-to-end digital care model that can seamlessly pass you on to your primary care physician, first virtually, and then physically when necessary, and then refer you to a hospital, bring you back, make you well at home, and then take the risk away from the insurers by managing this end-to-end. So the industry really likes the story. They love the application and the technology. So the more we can show it off, the more we can have people to pay attention to it, the more I'm sure that we'll get through. It just puts a bit of the stage light on us, and the more light we get, the better we perform.
For sure. In talking about performing and getting more attention and light on you guys and what you're doing, I was reading something from May about the New Health Physicians Plus relationship that you guys have. You're caring for more than 19,000 Medicare beneficiaries through that. Talk a little bit about that relationship and why that expanded reach and who you're able to get in front of is so important in this relationship.
So this is one of that relationship is very important to us because there are a great group of physicians who worked with us, who saw what we have to offer, and took our technology and our partnership and are offering it to their members. But in partnership with them, we can now offer a full range of Medicare services to their patients. But you must remember, in January 2020, we had our revenue in the United States was $0. We had zero life under management. By October 2020, we got our first set of lives, about 17,000 people out of management. Today, we have around 300,000 lives under management. These are people for whom we get either the entirety or just the professional section of their medical expenses, and we manage it. That kind of growth, I can't think of any other company in the United States that grew like that. And it grows through partnership, through physicians trusting you and what you're doing. And we hope to bring more of that on board soon.
Fantastic. Okay, a couple of other things to dive into as well. But, I think one of the most important things that, and we've already talked about the artificial intelligence and how it's difficult to present to people, but it's kind of a buzzword, right, throughout the industry. What do you think some of the misunderstandings or something that you think people don't understand enough about artificial intelligence would be? Could you dive into that a little bit?
Yes, for sure. I think that AI, like any other significant technology, I think is underestimated in the short run. It's overestimated in one way in the short run. We all think it's going to do a lot more than it did. But over long run, it's absolutely underestimated. As I said, when you put edge computing, quantum computing, AR and VR capabilities, robotics, all of those things that we are recreating in the technology world. And then think of the software layer of artificial intelligence we can put on top of that. And what that can do, merging the virtual and the physical together, and the level of intelligence it can bring. And if quantum computing comes live, a machine that our AI algorithms can sit on, that is 100 million-fold faster than the fastest computers that anybody has today, I mean, this is going to be incredibly powerful. A lot of fantastic people are doing great work on that. I think AI is going to be one of those technologies that will have an effect in the way our civilization will develop, in a way that not that many other technologies have done.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the revenue implications and the potential when you're talking about how much this is going to grow, right? Your Q1 earnings report, if we dive into that a little bit, grew 3.5 times year over year to $266 million. What were the growth drivers that led to that? Why do you guys think you had such a jump in revenue year over year?
So our biggest jump in revenue was the fact that more and more insurers trusted the lives of their customers to us. If you're an insurer, and not all, but often they don't have enough tools in their arsenal to be able to really help you to stay healthy and to avoid your crises and emergencies. And one of the things that we bring to them is one of the very few companies who could do so at scale. I mean, yes, there are other companies that they have a clinic, and if you're lucky enough to live around their clinic, they just you can be looked after by them. And most of those companies are looking at Medicare because the dollar signs are bigger in there. But we're agnostic. We can look after you if you're a commercial member, if you are a Medicaid member, if you're a Medicare member, and we could grow at massive speeds. One insurer asked us to take on 17,000 people in 60 out of 62 counties in the state of New York. And from the day we signed the contract to the day we started serving those people was 7 weeks. Can you imagine any other company being able to do that? I mean, the difference really is between Amazon serving you across New York from a warehouse of virtually and everything else versus setting up 7-Elevens everywhere, right? That model of physical, clinical, periodic, episodic, wait until you get sick to see a doctor, it's an old model of healthcare that eventually will be replaced by a continuous digital, always on, in your mobile, always available to you, monitoring you, collecting your data, warning you, predicting to prevent your crises and emergencies. And that's what we are building. And that's why the revenue is growing so fast, because there are not that many other people who could do what we do for our clients.
Got it. In taking that a step further with revenue too, you increased your 2022 guidance to 1 billion or greater and updated the adjusted EBITDA guidance. Talk a little bit about that, right? Obviously, if you guys are looking at this increased guidance for 2022, how much greater do you think you can grow the year beyond? And also, do you think there are any inhibitors that could slow you guys down from hitting this increased guidance?
Look, our growth has been, as I said, our growth has been almost 400%. We grew fourfold a year, every year, almost for the last 3 to 4 years, right? And we could continue growing at very fast speed. As you said, our first quarter revenue multiplied by 4 will still be a larger number than $1 billion. To put this in perspective, our first quarter revenue of this year, 266 million, was 60 million shy of all of our last year's revenue. So the numbers are doing really well. The challenge, of course, is that it costs to grow, because in the first year, when we take on new members, we have to engage them, we have to health assess them, we have to put them onto our programs. And with the financial market being what it is, some of the engine of that fast growth has been taken away from companies like us. So we need to grow a little bit more modestly, not a lot, but a little bit more modestly, in order to make sure that the cash that we have goes a long way until these markets come back and the engines for growth come back again.
Absolutely. That's perfect. Okay. And then one more question along that line of revenue, right? If you're looking at this increased guidance and everything else we just talked about, the year-over-year growth especially, what about profitability, right? Do you expect that sometime in the next year? When do we expect to hit that level of profitability considering this increased revenue guidance?
So I think profitability is really important, in the same way that I never was a big believer in growth at any cost. When the market was running there 2 to 3 years ago, it was all about growth. You could lose money and grow. Unit cost profitability is super important to us and has always been. And almost in most of our contracts, we either reach unit cost profitability in the first year, if not certainly in the second year. And we just published some of our profitability growth. I mean, look at this. In our very first year, in the contracts that we had, in Medicaid, that are some of the toughest contracts to have in the United States, that most people have lost money in, we made a 2% gross margin. In Medicare, in our longest lasting contracts for a full year, we made 14% margins. And in our commercial deals, we published a 19.6% gross margin. This is as good as anybody almost in the market, and certainly as good as anybody in the first year. We are, look at who my leadership team is, right? P.H. Ferrand, Paul-Henri Ferrand, who was the president of Google's cloud businesses. Steve Davis, who was the vice president, SVP, senior vice president of data and AI out of Expedia, one of the largest data platforms in the world. I can go on and on about the leadership that we put together to solve one of the biggest problems in healthcare. But to do that, it will take time, but somebody will make one of the most valuable companies in healthcare, because healthcare is one of the most largest sectors of the economy. And it's time that we turn this reactive, sick care, crisis-ridden model into a proactive, true healthcare, always on service that is there to keep you at the best of your health.
Absolutely. Ali Parsa, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on All Access. A lot of exciting things to look forward to, and congratulations on all of the progress you guys have made. It's going to be an exciting 2022.
Thank you. So good talking to you.